today to our webinar. The purpose of the webinar is actually to support you in the creation process of your video, and actually also to, which is even more important, to give you the opportunity to ask questions. And it doesn't matter if these are questions about the content or the structure of your story, or some technical questions about the tool that you're working with. So feel free to ask the questions. I would suggest that we write all the questions to the Q&A in the Q&A area, and that we use chat just only for the technical webinar issues. So if you can't hear us or can see something, you can write in the chat. But if you have questions to I'll say to the content part, please write it in the Q&A area, so it's better for us to have an overview of all questions there. With me today is my colleague Benny, representing the UNSSC part, and my name is Ilya, and I run the SimpleShow Foundation, and especially the volunteer initiative. So we've prepared today some points that we will would like to start with, and then but it won't take too much time, so we will just go very briefly through the tips that we have prepared, and then again you are very welcome to write your questions down, and we will try to answer them. So then I'll give the word to my colleague Benny for the first point.
Great. So hi everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. I'm just going to share my screen and take you straight to the Volunteer Initiative website. And the first tip that we'd like to share with you today is how you can access some information about sustainable development and the 2030 agenda that might be helpful as you create your video. So for those of you who haven't seen it yet, this is the Volunteer Initiative website, and it's also where you can sign up and get your exclusive access to the video creation tool, which we'll be showing you later on, my simpleshow. And just to take you straight down to the knowledge page. So if you, on the home page, if you scroll down and you click here where it says learn more about the 2030 agenda, it will take you to the 2030 agenda knowledge page. And here you can just find some foundational information. So there's a video here, of course, made through my simpleshow that tells you a little bit about sustainable development. There's some information on the 2030 agenda. And for those of you who haven't read it yet, there is a brief primer on sustainable development. And as the year progresses, we'll be adding more resources here, but we just wanted to start off by showing you this so that you can think about, a preliminary place to start when you want to start your research. So that's essentially it for the knowledge page. I'll hand over to Ilya so that he can talk you through a bit more about the research process of creating your video.
Okay, thank you, Benny. Basically, while doing or while preparing you for preparing this stuff for the creating a video, it's obviously you need to find some information about it. So, but it's really important that you use reliable and neutral sources. So first of all, of course, choosing a topic that you maybe are familiar with, it's the best thing, but it doesn't have to be like this. So of course, you can use online sources, you can use books and magazines, but yeah, to fill your knowledge gaps, but be also quite critical. So don't use some such sources like personal blogs that might be that might operate with some assumptions and not the facts. So basically, the most important tip here is just yeah, try yeah, to find reliable sources. A good way to start is actually to go to Wikipedia and search through some Wikipedia articles, and maybe not the articles itself, but go to the reference list or to the source list of this topic, and just yeah, check these sources, or of course go then and yeah, just make a personal fact check. As you are creating a video, of course, it's quite useful to go to the YouTube and just search for some videos on this topic. So I would also recommend to do this, just to try to get an overview what kind of videos are already available online. And if there are any, just watch them and analyze them. What is good? What is maybe missing in these videos? What would you like to improve? So this is quite a useful thing. In any case, what would like to ask you is just to track these sources and to keep the list of all sources that you use. You don't have to insert it into the video inside, or but it would be really useful if you just make this list and send it to us via email. So if you are ready with your video, and you can just send us a link to the video page and attach then the sources that you've used. Yeah, my second point will be about the target audience. We've talked quite a while during our session at the Global Festival of Action about this issue, so I don't want to go into detail. I just want to remind you about this specific audience. So in our case, in the SimpleShow Foundation case, the audience is really broad. So it might be people from different with different cultural backgrounds. These are people of different ages, and so on. So please have this in mind while creating the video, and yeah, try not to overestimate, yeah, just don't make it too complex, and try to explain the topic as you would explain it actually for a teenager. And one more thing, so we're talking about the broad audience that you have, but depending on the topic, there is also a specific one. And let's take an example. For example, it's a topic about HIV and AIDS. So if you take such a specific topic, there is also a specific audience that might watch the film afterwards. For example, people who met maybe HIV positive people before, or maybe even they are HIV positive themselves. So in this regard, it's really important to be very sensitive in with this topic, and that the overall appearance of your video is serious and don't make jokes about something. Yeah. So this is maybe two things. One is have in mind that the audience is broad, and please also have in mind the specific audience of your own topic. So yes, this brings me to the next point, actually, to especially to the specific audience and what you would like to communicate, which is formulating the key message. So I will give back my word to Benny.
Great, so I'm going to share my screen again, and this time let's go straight into the video creation tool. So for those of you who aren't familiar, when you sign up for the volunteer initiative, which is the initiative that lets you create these short animated videos, the SimpleShow Foundation is going to give you premium access to their video creation tool, which is a browser-based tool called My SimpleShow. And the way it works is that you essentially put in text and then you can visualize it and add your voiceover. And so we're going to lead you through that process in a second. But I just wanted to take you straight into the tool to illustrate the point about key messages. So essentially, once you log into the tool, you can start a draft, and then you go into what is called the write stage, which is where you write out your script. And here I've chosen a template where I can present a social issue. So here my issue is going to be, what are green cities? And what I normally do when I write a video is, before I even sit down and write the script, so I've already copied the script in here, I first think about the key messages. And the key messages are the key things that I want my viewer to take away from watching the video. So in this case, because my topic is about a green city, I have three key messages. My first key message is that unsustainable city design is a really big problem, and that it affects people around the world, and that this problem is increasing. My second key message is to make sure that people understand what a green city is, so define green city. Third key message is to show that the impact of green cities is not just environmental, but also social and economic. So those are my key messages. I write them down as bullet points before I start writing, and then I actually write out the script. So I won't go through the entire script with you because that will be a bit tedious, but essentially I start by presenting the issue. And presenting the issue is essentially my first key message. So I present the issue that unsustainable city design is a problem. Then I have a turning point for my issue. So how do we link this issue to the bigger problem? And then I come to the solution. And here in the solution, I come to my second key message, which is that I'm defining what a green city is and posing it as the solution to the problem. And then this is also where I outline my third key message, where I say that this is a great solution, this is what it is, and its impact is not just environmental, but it's also social and economic. And what I do here, and it doesn't matter what the key messages are, what I find really useful is that once I've actually gone through that point and scripted it out, I go back and read it through from beginning to end and make sure that I can clearly identify my key messages. And sometimes I also ask people to read it with fresh eyes and to tell me what the key messages are that they see, to make sure it's pretty much in line with what I'd identified. So that's the first stage of writing. And now I'll switch to Ilya, because he has a separate sample script that he's going to show you with another tip on this writing stage, and then we'll move over to the visualization stage.
Okay. So let me share my screen now. I'm here already in the visualization stage, but please just ignore the pictures for the couple of minutes and just yeah, stay focused on the text. So it's the next thing I would like to talk is actually this approach that that I've talked about during the session on the Global Festival of Action, which is the SCQA approach in storytelling. I would just very briefly remind you on it, and also show on the other example how can it work very successfully in order to build a story. So the first thing, you create the message that you want to communicate, and then how you pack it. And yeah, the best way to do is in this format, in the video format, is just to tell a short story. And the SCQA method helps you to build a very simple story very easily. So the S stands for situation, and basically what are you doing here? Just describing a regular situation that introduces your story and makes familiar with the character and with the situation. So in this example, produced by a volunteer for our initiative, the topic is about the climate change and how does climate change affect food supply. Yes, the first thing the volunteer does here is actually to introduce the character, and just a regular situation. I'll read the first sentence here. This is Fred. He's enjoying his lunch while watching the news, where he hears a lot about the effects of climate change. So it's quite a familiar situation. Everyone can imagine this, and maybe even associate or identify this character with themselves. Then the next letter C stands actually for complications or kind of problem that arises to the problem. And what we see here is the following. So we write, he likes the idea of the summertime being 2 degrees hotter, but is worried about how climate change will affect his lunch. Okay, it's quite a funny, it's a little joke built in the text. Then we specify the problem and describe it a little bit in more detail. The bread and vegetables Fred eats are threatened because of climate change, and so on. So basically in the next slides, the problem is described and in a greater detail. So especially in this case, the describing the problem is actually the main part of the whole simpleshow, which is okay. We usually recommend to do it a little bit shorter, so that we have a kind of problem description within the first couple of scenes, and then go to the actual solution. But it's very depends very on the topic. And yeah, the next thing is the letter Q stands actually for the question, and the question in this script is actually, okay, we describe the problem, and we ask the viewer or the person asks themselves, does it have to be this way? And the final one is actually the answer. And we answer this question, no, it doesn't have to be this way. And by taking some actions, we can change the situation. Yeah, that's it actually. So this is one of the many approaches in storytelling. Basically, for yourself, you don't have to follow it, but it's quite an easy tool to to write a kind of story. I can also give you some other kind of check list for your story. So if you can answer or can find the answers in your text to the 5 following questions, like who did what, when, and how did they do it, and for what purpose or why. So then you wrote a good story. So just while writing this story, you can just try to implement this the answers to this question. So just check if you have who, so who is your main character or the subject, then what are you talking about, then when it has happened, and the most important is also why does this also happen. So that's it actually. If you have any questions, don't forget about our Q&A area and button, so feel free to put some question there, and we will go back to them after in the end of the webinar. Okay, so then let's go to the next point about the visualization. So Benny, you're welcome to share again your example.
Great. Okay, so we're back in my storyline, and I've moved to the visualization phase. And here you can see the script that I shared in the right phase. And what's really cool about this tool is that you can choose keywords from your script that you want to visualize. So what you can see on the screen is essentially our script on the left, and on the right, you can already see what the frame that your viewer will see in the video. So everything that you see here on the right-hand side is showing what will actually appear in your video. So the different frames for your video. And in order to choose what appears in the frame, you determine the keywords. So let's look at this second slide for an example. So every word here that's in blue is a keyword. So the first one is Greg. Greg is the main character, so yes, we want him to be visualized. The next thing that the tool has automatically decided is a keyword is busy city. So great, yes, that's also a keyword. Now, another thing that's been visualized is smog and air, but let's say I also want to visualize the word polluted. So I can simply do that by choosing one of these little blue boxes here, and I drag it up and put it on polluted. Now this is the fun part, where you select the keyword and you can choose a way to visualize it. So for example, you can choose text and write pollution, but that's probably not what you want. You could select what we call a scribble, which is simply an illustration, and choose, for example, smoke. And you get all these different examples. So let's say I go with this one. So that's pollution. And there are all sorts of little features that you can play around. So essentially step one is to really go through and decide which of the words you want to visualize, right? So maybe some of these are not necessary. For example, let's say I don't want weather to be a keyword. So I can just select this X and that image disappears. So you get to choose up to 7 words per frame, per slide that you want to visualize. And for each of those keywords, you can choose either an animation, a scribble, or you can choose a scribble of a person, or writing, or you can upload your own images. And uploading your own images can be a fun way to add some color. So for example, imagine that I want to make Greg in color. I can simply upload a picture and there I have him. The other thing that you can do on the slide is to rearrange all the scribbles once you've decided which ones you want. And to do that, you would go to this little icon in the upper right corner, you click on it, and you can resize the scribbles, move them around. Another feature is that you can add a frame if you want to emphasize something. You could do that. Adding a frame is often a great option for when you upload photographs of real images, because as you can see, the general scheme, the visual theme of these videos is animation. So it looks a little bit odd sometimes to have, say, a photograph of a real city, but then if you add a frame, it keeps that theme of this scribble animated theme there, and so it doesn't look like too much of a contrast.
Mm-hmm.
Another really handy feature is that you can flip the images. So for example, this guy is turning to the right, I can turn him that way. So that's how you can basically set up your scene. You identify your keywords, you decide how you want to visualize each of them using either scribble or uploading a photo or writing text, and then you rearrange them on the screen. Now, one other really handy feature with the visualization phase is that you can add effects to your scribble. So if you click on Add Scribble Effect, for example, you can add a check mark. And what this means is that once the slide plays, so let's look at a preview, it adds a little animation where the check mark will actually appear. There you go. And there are all sorts of other things. That one was a check mark, but you can also do it with little sparkles for shine, or you can have a cross if you want to negate something, or no effect at all. But those are some of the visual options that you can play around with for each of the keywords that you've identified. So I'll let Ilya take over now so he can show you more features of the visualization phase, and then we'll go straight into the Q&A. And on that note, Vera, I can see that you've asked about voiceover, which is great because Ilya is about to talk about phones in a second.
Okay, so let's go back to our story about the Fred and his lunch. And what I would like to do with you is just to look at the feature splitting and merging these scenes. So because what you get in the visualization phase here in this in the tool, that these scenes are divided more or less automatically. So and sometimes it doesn't really fit the division between the scenes, and you want to adjust it. So it's really easy to do. Let's go, let's say, to this scene. So it's already prepared with the visuals, as you see. So it's a final project. So, but maybe we would like to divide these two sentences, and we just go to this scissors icon. And then push the button on the mouse and slide to the sentence that we want to cut, and just let it then at the button, and then this scene is divided into two. So obviously you can adjust the scribbles here, as we just saw in the sample of my colleague, and maybe you would like to really stress attention on something, and then to put it in the middle, right in the middle of the scene. So then it's the good way to do like this. You can also so the previous scene has exactly 7 scribbles, so it's the maximum per scene. But if you want to add something, it's actually not possible. But as you divided the scenes, you can here add some more scribbles. Let's say we need here a question mark, and we just put one more keyword here, and look for a question mark, and then put it like this, yeah. And so the other thing, we can cut the scenes quite easily, as you see, and then we can merge the scenes. Basically, it works just the way around. So like we see here there's 2 arrows in the upper right corner. So if we push it, the scene, 2 scenes, so the previous and this scene will merge, but we get here a message, okay, we would have more than 7 squirrels in this merge scene, which is not possible. So that's why you need to delete one of the scribbles in order to merge the scene. So in total, it's in the final scene, it has to be maximum 7 scribbles. So let's delete again this keyword that we inserted in this scene, and then just to merge this scenes again together. Yeah, of course we have to move then our scribbles back in order the scenes looks good, but yeah, basically this is the thing. Yeah, so let's make me just very quickly some adjustments, and we can continue with the next cool feature, which is the recording your voiceover, which we would strongly recommend to do. And okay, it takes some, I hope it works now. Yes, just as you might probably already recognize, you have different options in automated voices here, and you can check them before you record your own voice. Just yeah, just to check your video how it looks then, and then you just go to this to the records button here, and yeah, the only thing you do is just to push here and record your own voice, and then you will get into the mode like a karaoke. So you just you will record every scene per scene, so you don't have to record the whole simple show in once, but in steps, which is of course very useful. So the only thing, I would just record one scene for you as a example. So you push this button, and you have a countdown, and you read, how does climate change affect food supply, and how will this affect us? So I wasn't so fast. I hope it still works. Otherwise, you just repeat and make your one more recording if it doesn't really fit into this slot. How does climate change affect food supply, and how will this? Okay, so you just try to make your recording as good as it is, but again, this we would recommend to to record your own voice, because it's a natural voice. You can play with the intonations, with stress something, and also pronounce things correctly. Yeah, that's it actually. So for now, I would just maybe go to the questions. I've got two questions. So one was in the chat. Just let me. It was about the.
If I could jump in, Ilya, one is actually about the audio phase or the voice recording phase. So perhaps if you can take that since you're in that phase. And then the other question was about the visualization phase. So I can take that since I'm still in that phase. But maybe if you could start with Vera's question about handling the language and local language and subtitling / voiceovers.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. Okay, so the subtitling is really very simple, so we can stay with this. You can do this in the finalize stage, where you can just go to this adjustments here, to the settings, and you can set up the subtitles. It will show the subtitles in English, but what you can do here is just go to the text, and then write here your own text, for example, in different language. And then you can have then a video, for example, in English, but with the French or German subtitles, or any other. You can also, it's also possible to make a video in other languages. So there are at least two ways to do this. The first is that you write the script for your video just in the same way like we did it here, so in English. So you work with the visuals, and then if you go to the record your own voice, you can then translate it into your language, into the local language, and then record your own voice in the other language. So the only thing you have to do here is just to make sure that the duration of your recording is exactly the same that's the tool suggests. So you have to be as quickly as this karaoke tool, and then if you fit into it, it's will be also perfectly fine. So the other thing is that you can also really insert a text into in a other language, but the thing is that the tool won't recognize this these keywords and won't suggest any visuals for your video. So in this case, you would just go manually and mark every keyword that you want to be visualized in your video, and then go and choose in with English search words for the visuals, and basically build the whole video manually. So it's a little bit more complicated, and it will take you a bit more time, but it's still possible. So, but maybe the easiest way to do it is just write in English. So then you have an English version, and then you just translate the text into a different language, and then record the voice over in this local language. Okay, so Benny, would you like to go to the question from Javier?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
So Javier had asked whether there's an option to remove one scribble during the animation. So I'm just going to switch over to my screen.
Yes, do this.
Because I'm still in the visualize phase. So Javier, just to make sure I've understood your question, what I understood was that you just want to know, for example, if we have a slide like this one and it's too cluttered, how to remove one. And in that case, you can just hover over it and click the X. And what that does is that it makes that keyword not a keyword, so it wouldn't be visualized. So for example, suppose I don't want stuck in traffic, I simply click the X over the word and it disappears. Similarly with hours, I can hover over it, click it. Now, if I want to add these back, then I would drag the blue bar back. But I'm not quite sure if that was what you were asking. Perhaps you can indicate in the text if there was another component to your question. During the animation. So that would be after, okay, so that would be after the video was already finalized? Ah, right, okay. So if you want to make an edit after the video is already finalized, as far as I understand this, but I'm going to defer to Ilya because he really knows the tool better than me. As far as I understand, you would have to go back to the visualization phase and correct it. There's no way to correct it after you've finalized it unless you go back to that phase. Would you say that's correct, Ilya?
Yeah, that's basically correct. So you will have to go to the visualize phase, and then yeah, to go to this scene that you want to make the adjustments, and then yeah, make these adjustments, and then you have to finalize the video again. You can also copy the project so that you have the previous one. So and make sure you don't lose your I'm not sure about the audio in the finalized stage. If we go to, I think if you don't change the text, so the for example, if you also already recorded your voiceover and go back to the visualize phase, it will say the tool, you will get a kind of warning that if you go back, you will lose any settings that you've made in the finalized stage. But I think as soon as you don't touch the text, the recording will be saved. But as soon as you change the text, it's also you have to make the recording one more time. So be careful with that. So just make sure you yeah, you are really final with one stage and can move into another. But again, you can also copy projects, and you can also have a preview in the visualize phase where you can see either one scene or really the whole video, and check if everything works like you want it to work.
Yeah, and on that note, if I could actually share my screen, I can quickly show you what Ilya was just mentioning. So on my screen, I'm showing the videos section. So if you go to my videos in the upper left, you can see a list of all the projects you've worked on. And in order to create a copy, you simply click on the three dots and you can hit copy project, and then that creates a copy. So in fact, you can see some copies that I've already created. And once you've created a copy of your final video, you just click on the edit icon, and then again, you can go back to the visualize phase like Ilya just said, and you'll be able to edit it. And then if I can quickly take you to this example and just show you the preview feature as well. So the preview feature is a great way. Okay, so the preview feature, as Ilya said, is a really great way of ensuring that you're happy with the general logic of your video before you finalize it. And you can do that up here. So in this visualize phase, once you've agreed, you've decided what you want, you can simply click up here and it'll just, I won't actually show it to you, but the tool will generate a preview and you can watch kind of the full thing before you finalize. So it really is best to figure out what you want in terms of the layout and the visuals before you actually take the trouble of recording your voiceover.
Exactly. That's right. So, do we have more questions? I can't see any. So feel free to write something in the Q&A or just into the chat. So if there are no questions, so we can just, what about the video? What do you mean? Yes, small video clips. Do you mean the tutorials in the instead of okay, yeah, I see. Yes, that's a good question. It's possible to work with the GIFs, but not with the video files. So you can insert a GIF instead of a picture, so with a small animation, so that it will work. But videos are not allowed to insert instead of a picture. So it would make also the format quite challenging, I think. Yeah, also for the viewer, if we have a kind of video inserted into the video. So we don't want to. Yeah. Good. Any other questions? Okay, if not, so you still, if you will have some troubles or with the features or what with some also content details, just feel free to contact us via email or and any other channel, and we will try to help you as soon as possible. So I would like to remind you about the some details about the contest. So you still have more than 1 week to finalize your video, and also maybe invite some more people to join the contest, even if it's competition, but it's maybe makes it more fun. We have now several submissions already, and so it's after you finalize the video, make sure you also submit it to the contest. So there's a special submission form, but it's described on our blog or on the blog of the UNSSC too. So
actually, Ilya, if you could pull up the blog on the link on the Simple Show Foundation website, if you could actually pull up the blog, or I can quickly show it if you want to.
Yeah, I can also, maybe you can just insert the link and I will go share my screen and go to the blog. So just you've seen it once. So you go to our blog, and then it's just the most recent article about the contest, and here you will find all the details, including also the deadline, which is the Sunday next week. So it's the 22nd April. 11 p.m. So, and here is also the link to the submission form. So you just go to click on it. You just put your name, your email address, and also link to the video. And as I mentioned before, please list here your sources that you've used for video creation. Yeah. That's it. Thank you so much for taking part in this webinar. Penny, I'll give you the final word. Yeah.
Thanks. I mean, the only thing I would really add is that today was, of course, really about a couple of tips, and part of the criteria, as you'll see if you read the blog, is that we look at the content, but we also look at the presentation. And these small things like choosing the right images, making sure they're sized properly, deciding where in the frame to put them, and making it a little bit colorful, all of those little extra touches really add up to make a more professional looking video. And so you really will be ahead of the rest if you take even, say, half of these tips in mind. And so we're so excited to see not only your messages, but how you actually visualize them and tell your stories. So we really hope that you will submit one or even more than one entry, and that you'll spread the word. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you again, and good luck. And we're really excited about the